ladies and gentlemen. This is Policy Talks. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is Policy Talks brought by the Williamson Inc., our chamber here in Williamson County once a month. And we're happy to have a live audience here at the beautiful Columbia State campus. It's a beautiful day out there. The sun is very bright, and coming east from any place in Franklin, it was like dodging the traffic lights trying to see what's going on. But it's a beautiful day, and we're glad to have you all here. We've got a TV audience with us on WCTV, which is Comcast Channel 3, and on YouTube. And Creed, I can't keep up with all the venues. Its own radio audience on WAKM, and thanks to Tom Lawrence and his crew. So got an interesting panel here this morning that I've been looking forward to talking about, one of my favorite subjects. And and a lot of people, you know, around Franklin love to talk about growth and traffic and things like that. So our guest this morning from seniority down, Dr. Ken Moore, the mayor of Franklin, Eric Stuckey, our city administrator, and Paul Holzen, the director of engineering, and David Chang in the traffic management department there at the city hall. And we've got a presentation that they've got put together. I want to get to know a couple of these guys a little better personally, and I should have asked ChatGPT how long you've been mayor, Mr. Mayor, but tell us how long you've been in office now.
13 years. It'll be 14 in
January. And so far, so good. Got reelected here about a year ago, I think. And so we're looking forward to another 3 or 4 years. Eric, you've been here. I did get your LinkedIn profile. It looks like almost 16 years.
16 at the end of this year.
And Paul was right behind you, maybe 1 month less than you are. So he must have been your first hire after you became city administrator.
I didn't hire him directly, but it was a great decision. I did get to hire him as our city engineer and engineering director a few years later, and
right.
Smart decision.
Now, Eric, have you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro lately, or?
Not lately.
What's your latest adventure?
I don't know if I have a great one to report yet, so we'll work on that.
I should have asked the mayor if you hadn't hiked Mount Kilimanjaro, have you? That was Eric's claim to fame a couple of years ago. So,
bottom of my bucket list.
Great, good. Paul, tell us a little bit about your tenure here at the city, and then how David interacts with that. So
I'm the engineering director for the city, so that's over traffic operations, stormwater, and then development and capital projects. And David Chang is one of our traffic engineers. He does an amazing job, and he watches and monitors traffic all day long and helps us resolve lots of issues.
So tell us exactly what you do, David.
Not watch traffic all day long. I've got a lot of other things I do too. Watching traffic is one of the things we do. Couple of the things, some of the big things I do with a lot of my time is mostly development driven, looking at traffic impact studies. So when a developer wants to come in and build, many of them will have to do a traffic impact study. I'll review those for and make comments. And then on the other side is, once they've gone through that process, making sure that the plans that they submit are, follow the traffic impact study requirements, and just other things like that. Signal timing is another big thing. There's a lot of other things too, but those are probably the 3 most time-consuming pieces that I do.
Paul, do you ever go back and look at his traffic studies from 5 years ago and see how accurate they were?
No, I do not. He does an amazing job.
Just give him a hard time a little bit.
So I'll comment on that real quick. So recently, because we're moving out of City Hall, we've had to purge some paperwork. So we don't have to store it. And some of that paperwork are old traffic impact studies. So I was tasked with finding out which ones we can get rid of, which ones have digital copies and stuff like that. So I was able to go back through the last 35 years of traffic impact studies. I have no idea what these things are called. So I have no idea what they are. And most of them were before my time here. So I got to go through some of them and look at them and like, oh, it's a little bit different. A little bit different now. So it's been interesting. It's been a fun exercise, though.
Learn a lot from historical stuff, and so we'll lay off of you now for a while. But Paul, you've got a presentation that some slides that kind of cover the gamut of our subject this morning. So go ahead and start that and let us kind of see the overall view.
I want to actually turn it over to David Chang to talk a little bit about our technology and our Traffic Operations Center first.
So the first thing I start off with is, I don't know if many of you know, but many of the departments are leaving City Hall for temporary locations. The Traffic Operations Center has moved as of yesterday. So we are now in the police department. So it's a big change. It's quite a bit different. But so the city of Franklin, we're really lucky to be able to have a lot of different types of technology and being able to use and test new and upcoming technologies. But currently, we have about 127 signals that are all connected back to the Traffic Operations Center. We have about 19 of them are on our Scoot system, which is an adaptive system, which is able to make changes without any input from either me or Adam or any other human. It's able to, based on the traffic that's there, it can make those decisions for itself. We do provide guidance for it, but generally speaking, it's largely it operates by itself. We have 35 traffic cameras that we use to monitor traffic across the city to help with signal timing or help diagnose issues with the different parts of our system. We have 60 miles of fiber that connects to all of our signals, and about 75% of them use either video or microwave detection. So that way, if there's an issue with it, we don't actually have to close a lane to be able to maintain it. We can just do it from the side of the road and not block traffic and mess things up for you guys.
Those traffic cameras are only used to monitor and analyze traffic. They're not used for enforcement, just so people know. Sometimes people ask that question.
Feel free to input as you see need, Eric.
So that was mostly the hardware side of things. On the software side of things, we have a central system that connects to all of the signals that we have out in the field, at the intersections. That is one of probably the single most useful piece of software we have, I think, because otherwise, if I wanted to make a change at one signal or the whole corridor, I have to physically go out and start punching buttons, and it would just take a long time. So it's a very useful piece of software that we've got. We also have a Twitter page that we put out information on, crashes or upcoming events. We are also a Waze partner, which allows us to be able to put road closures out onto the map itself. So if you're trying to get, like 5 Points, recently was closed for, Fifth Avenue up into 5 Points was closed. So we're able to put it on the map and say, this road is going to be closed. So when you're using Waze or Google, it's able to show you not to use that specific route or, whatever roads are closed. So it's very useful for, I think, most of the driving community. And we also have a preemption to help fire and ambulances get to where they're going, as quickly as they can and as safely as they can as well.
If I can interrupt, explain how that Scoot system works, if you will.
Short story or the long story? So
Less than 5 minutes, but
so we'll get the short story. So it is. There's a lot about it that I don't even know after it's been deployed for about 3 years. So there's 3 variables that it changes throughout the day. It's the offset, the split. So that's how much green time each lane will get, and how long the cycle is. So that's how long it takes for the signal to come back to you, a specific, northbound through or something like that. So what it is, it's very dependent on detection. So if the system doesn't know if your car's there, it can't help you. And that's true across, whether it's Scoot or not. If the detection's not working, it doesn't know you're there. So for this system, we have several hundred individual, they're called pucks. They're little, 3-inch boxes that we have to put into the ground. And all of those are tied back to the system. And using those little boxes that detect vehicles, the system can tell how much traffic is coming up the road, so it can kind of prepare for it as you're arriving. So, if you're making a left turn and there's only 3 of you trying to make that turn, it knows there's 3 cars, so it's able to adjust the amount of green time that you'll see. If there's, a couple minutes later, there's 15 of them, it's able to make that adjustment by itself without, interaction from us. So it's able to be a lot more efficient in allocating time to, the different movements that are there.
But it's real-time adjustments.
It's real-time adjustments.
Traffic
Yep.
builds or lessons.
Yep. So.
That'll work. So, that's a short story.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, if you get the wrong person up here, they could keep going all day. So moving forward, so those are all the things that we've got currently, and moving forward, we're rolling out some new technology. So one of the new ones that we've got coming out is newer controllers. So the controllers are the brains of the signal. They make the choices. They are what tells the lights to go green, yellow, or red. So we're getting some updated controllers that are able to give us a lot more flexibility in the things that we do. Some of the really older ones, there's only one way. It's one way, and that's it. For the whole day, it's you can only use this set of settings. With the newer controllers as well, it's they'll play nicely with third-party software or equipment or hardware, so that way we can deploy the most recent or the best technology that we can, and they all play nicely together and work. Something else that we've got is a central software that's as well as pretty modern as well. The one we're currently using is, I'm not sure how old it is, but they've had it for a while, and the newer one that we've got is a little more flexible, same as the controller. So another item that we've got, if you go on, is a new type of detection. This it's a single camera with a fisheye lens that can see 360 degrees. This camera helps us with detection, and what it also does is that it allows us to see what's out there with a camera without actually having to add another camera. So it's getting like a 2-for-1 deal. So we're able to use this for detection, as well as counting the number of vehicles and actually be able to see what's out there. This specific intersection is McEwen and Wilson Pike. Our infrastructure out there, because it's so far away from most of the area, is pretty limited out there. So this one actually runs on a cellular service rather than fiber. But because it's so far out there, it's pretty remote. It's nice to be able to see, when we get a call or something saying, oh, this isn't working, we can actually go see what's out there, or if there's a crash or something. So, all this new technology is great and all, but how do we use it? So one of the ways recently that we've used some of this technology is we've got a phone call about Carruthers and 96 East. The call stated that they're not getting a green light for the northbound left. So this call came in at 7:20 or so. So I was at home, and I was able to pull up my computer, open it up, and all of this new technology or software is all internet-based. So I don't actually have to have the physical computer or program on my computer. I can just open it up, use a VPN back to the server back at wherever that is, and be able to get access to all this information. And if you go to the next slide, this is what I saw. So you can probably notice there's something wrong. those little green boxes are the detection zones. So we draw those zones in so that it knows that cars are there, ready to, waiting for a green light. So I open it up, I see this, and, well, that's obviously not right. So I was able to, in real time, be able to put those boxes back where they belong and, fix this issue within, 2 or 3 minutes.
Question. Am I allowed to ask him a curveball, Paul? But I've been here a long time. And it seems like over the last few years, the traffic light cycles have gotten progressively longer and longer and longer. And I suspect there is an engineering formula that says that's better. But clearly, several seconds after my light turned green, some fella comes through, at 40 miles an hour on Cool Springs Boulevard the other day. And I find myself being tempted to push it on through those yellow lights about as far as, because I know if I don't get through, it's going to be a long time before I get another green light. So help me feel better about that.
About running red lights or?
No, I did get a ticket for that one. No, I don't do that anymore. But just the yellow one. But
you are accurate that they are getting longer, and that's largely due to the influx of traffic. If we don't have much traffic, we can keep the cycle lengths shorter. But as more and more traffic comes, to be able to get this much traffic through without stopping at every single traffic light, they've got to be longer. Otherwise, you stop at every single traffic light, which, you can pick your poison, I guess. Do you want to wait at a traffic light for 90 seconds, or stop at every single one? I think what we found is most people would rather wait for a minute and a half or 2 minutes, and then actually get like 3, 4, 5 signals down the road versus waiting 20 seconds here. But then that also adds up 20 seconds at 4 or 5 signals, which ends up being maybe the same, maybe more, maybe less. But we're not moving as much traffic. So there is a formula, I don't know what it is, but I've seen it, that does show that the longer cycle lengths are able to push more traffic through, but it does come at a cost, and that cost is potentially more delay on the side street, so not the main road.
accidents at intersections gotten worse since that happened.
I don't know if it's directly related to the longer cycle lengths. What I do think it is because there's more traffic. The sheer volume. We are over capacity at a lot of these intersections. Like the two that I can think off the top of my head right now is Cool Springs and Mallory. That's drastically over. That is actually our busiest signal at like in a single hour. We're almost at 7,000 cars through that intersection. The other one is 96 East and Royal Oaks. Those two are the two busiest that we have, and people are just tired of waiting. Just because of the sheer number of cars, we cannot. And I don't know if people want to sit around for 4 minutes, but we could do that. But that's just.
I just had to vent a little frustration there. So, Paul, you're next, aren't you?
I'm going to go very quick through these slides. This just shows a list of capital projects we've completed over the years, last 10 years. And there's a lot of projects there. This is a commitment to our board of mayor and aldermen funding projects and our staff implementing them and just trying to keep up with development as it proceeds. Some of these projects were done by the city, some through the state with the city partnership, and some were actually done by development as they come forward. So lots of projects we've accomplished over the years. Right now, what we're doing is we're going through working with our board to fund the next round of projects. Not all of these are roadway projects. It also involves parks and other sorts of projects and trails. And so right now, and we'll come back to this number, is what we've determined is there's around $86 million of capacity. And now the board has the fun task of trying to prioritize 53 projects and picking which projects can move forward and which ones do not get to move forward. This is a map just kind of showing our active projects that we have going on. There's 3 of them crossed out because we recently completed them and I didn't have time to update this slide. And we'll just hit them very quickly. Jordan Road, under construction right now, about a $2 million project, and it should be completed March 2025. We actually are very far ahead of schedule, so hopefully we finish it before the holidays. The contractor's trying to, but no promises there. McEwen, this is a project that I think started about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. It is out to bid right now, about a $47 million project. So we hope to start construction in January, February timeframe of this year. What will that be? It will be a 4-lane median divided roadway. Very challenging job. We're dropping the hill down about 15 feet. And when we do that, we got to keep all the utilities active. We pretty much have to relocate every utility known to man twice. So it's going to be a very challenging project. And also, I should mention, about $30 million of federal funding on that project. Hopefully, we're going to get more to help cover some of the costs.
That started as about 10 million of federal money, and we've been able to leverage it into more. And like Paul said, we think we've got a decent shot of adding even more to that. So 30 million of the 47 million is coming from the federal side.
McEwen Phase 5, which is Wilson Pike over to the city of Brentwood limits. It's actually funded partially by the city of Brentwood and the city of Franklin. Construction timeframe is to be determined. It's about a $19 million project, and this will one day be the major east-west connector for the city and the county. Church Street, people ask why we're doing Church Street. This is really a utility project. We're putting storm drainage in. Every utility also needs upgraded in this area of the city, water, sewer, gas, it's all part of it. Probably underground portions of the electric system there. But this ultimately gets a storm system up into some of the older areas of the city that really, really do need stormwater infrastructure. Mallory, Royal Oaks, and Liberty, we're going to be putting 2 roundabouts in here. This is about a $22 million job. We're hoping to start right away in about a year from now is to start acquiring the right of way, and it'll be about another 2 years after that before we actually start construction. Columbia Avenue, this project's needed done for many, many years. This is actually funded through the state and federal highways. Again, we're actually right now starting the right-of-way acquisition process. There's 56 some tracks that we have to buy right-of-way from. That's about a 3-year process and a very, very challenging job. Again, we're relocating pretty much, if you look at those power poles, we're relocating every utility known to man on this corridor as well. Lewisburg, we're adding sidewalks here in this section, ultimately working a trail system down to Mac Hatcher. But this is that first phase, fully funded by the city, about a $4 million job. Right away is complete. The last remaining item is to get approval through CSX, which is what we're working on. And once that's done, we'll be able to go to bid. Long Lane Overpass, we're in the final stages of utility relocation. And the board recently modified this project to, limit the project scope to bring the cost down, about a $28 million job. You'll notice TDOT, when they widened I-65, put the piers out there, and that was a few years back to accommodate this project long-term. And a way to think about this is kind of like Baker's Bridge, is this will be that east-west connection to avoid Goose Creek. Talk a little bit about where the state is with their funding. Recently, TDOT received an additional $3.3 billion to help implement projects across the state. And if you look at their 10-year capital plan, they have about a total of $15 billion. Where this becomes important is they went from having 7,000 projects down to 1,000 projects, and now they're really trying to focus on project delivery. They have 93 projects. That's all they funded with this $15 billion. There's probably a much, much bigger need for funding to help move projects forward, but this is where we're at now, and it's caused us to have to rethink how we go about projects. And one of the things TDOT's doing because of their lack of funding is really trying to push the locals to partner with them and bring funding to the table. So there's lots of discussions citywide about how we try to move some of those projects forward.
Talk on that real quick. We've been engaging with State Department of Transportation to talk about that and what that could look like for us. Paul's going to talk about a couple projects that very much fall into that. And we're looking at it both from what's the funding partnership look like, and a big part of the push at the state legislative level was to open it up to more partnerships. The choice lane concept is about public-private partnership to deliver that, but our point has been local governments are partners too. What does that look like? And when this first 10-year plan was done a year or so ago, we put money on the table to help do Southeast Mac Hatcher widening. We thought we had a really good shot up until it was announced that we didn't get it. And so the question is, what's the goal? If we know the goal, we can work towards the goal, but we just didn't have that articulated. And we really honestly still don't, but we're having more dialogue around it. And we know a lot of our key projects, our key choke points are state route involved. So we need to understand what that looks like. And so we're trying to be aggressive in that and understand that and kind of stay tuned on that end. But we are looking to be a partner in improving these important key state routes across the community.
Mayor, when our governor, who is from Williamson County, became governor, Southeast McHatcher was on the 3-year plan. Now it's not even on the 3-year plan anymore. Have you had any conversations with him about?
I've had conversations at the MPO, and I think that is back on the list again, is my understanding, and that's certainly one project we're looking at. I think the point of what we're discussing right now is that there's a flaw in how we fund transportation in the state of Tennessee. They're now pushing funding responsibility more on the cities, expecting us to come up with more money to help fund projects that the state should be paying for. We're a pay-as-you-go state. It's nice to brag about it. We have no road debt. But in reality, when we did the Improve Act, those projects were supposed to be done within 10 years, and with inflation, it turned up 40 years to get them done. And so that's the reason for the Transportation Modernization Act. So I'm a strong advocate that the state needs to study how they're funding transportation in the future. Whenever they did the Improve Act, they should have indexed the gasoline tax, which is one of the revenue sources to do our roads. So I think that I hope that that discussion will occur in the General Assembly, and they will look very seriously on some other options to fund transportation. Because if we're going to put X amount of dollars in a state project, that means that our local roads are going to suffer because we don't have the money to build a local road.
And the state changed their philosophy. You talked about the 3-year plan. They would put components of many projects in the 3-year plan, but not the full funding. So for example, Southeast, I think they had some environmental or preliminary engineering in there, but they didn't have final design or construction in a 3-year plan. So you're sort of always jockeying to land there. And so the change they've made is once they commit to a project, they commit all the way. That's good, but they're doing, really at the end of the day, even though they put more money, they're doing fewer projects.
Right.
But it's a full commitment to complete them. So if you're on that list, it's fantastic. You know it's going to get done. But if you're not, you're like us on a couple of these, trying to find the best path and what does that partnership look like, and that's what we're working on.
Pay-as-you-go does sound good, but, that's like telling a young family they can't buy a house till they save up all the money for it. When you're growing, you've got issues that, may take years to pay for, but you need them now. So that's what financing is all about. So, but go ahead, Paul.
Kind of what Eric's talking about, McHatcher Southeast, $100 million project. Just as a reminder, we only have, the city, right down our current model is $85 million to try to figure out what projects we do. And do we spend that on local streets, or do we spend that on limited access TDOT? So there's, as Eric said, there's lots of conversations between city staff, elected officials, appointed officials as to how do we move this project forward. I think we can all agree that we can't wait 10 years to widen McHatcher Southeast. Very similar is McHatcher Northwest. Again, I don't think we can wait 10 years before we fund this. Currently today, there's about a mile queue of backup during those peak hours. This improvement is really needed. So again, there are a lot of conversations happening as to what is the best way to move these projects forward.
On both those McHatcher projects, the right-of-way is already owned. So, and utilities are already located out to the perimeter. So the big things that cost us time and money and delay are that right-of-way and utility relocation. In both of those major projects, those issues are pretty much off the table because they've already been widened in such a way to anticipate that. So we get the green light to go on these through the state, we can really move quicker than a typical project of this magnitude, which is, if we can get the right answer, it's encouraging, but we got to get there.
As I was doing my research, which I enjoy doing before these programs, ran across a letter to the editor to the Tennessean from Mark Cleveland. Is he still in Williamson County? He used to be. I don't know.
Lives in East Nashville, but Mark's at a lot of the transportation meetings and advocating basically for a program he calls Hitch, which is a shared ride opportunity where you can use the software, and he partners with cities and other organizations to create a reward program to encourage shared rides.
He mentioned that. He also raised a suggestion that I used to think about as I was sitting on my catcher waiting for, the mile of traffic in front of me. That was before it was widened between 96 and Hillsborough Road, which improved my commute drastically. But we've got a lot of asphalt in Franklin that we never can use. It's called the shoulder. And I look at that shoulder and say, why can't we just, use it at least in high traffic times? And in addition to that, where Royal Oaks comes into McAtcher there by the YMCA, you could have a double left turn lane there instead of a single, which would help a lot around 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's why we have engineers. Paul, I see you want to answer that one.
We have asked the question. We have tried to convince TDOT to allow us to use the shoulders. Their concern is the rock fall zone of the bluffs there. That shoulder is in that zone, and the rock is not sturdy enough, and so TDOT continues to reject that request.
Tell them to put up a rock fence like they do over, well, it might not work too well during Helene over on I-40, but most of the time that works okay, so push that a little harder, will you? But Mark had raised that issue, and I thought, that's not a bad suggestion, so.
Also raised the issue of the HOV lanes, and nobody pays attention to those markings. And to enforce that, you're just going to create gridlock. So it's kind of an interesting situation. I think the fact that the choice lanes gives an opportunity for public transit to use those without a charge could be a real opportunity for us, because right now, who wants to ride a bus that's getting there at the same time if I were driving my car?
Right.
And so if you can create that situation where a bus gets there faster than any other way you can get there, then people are going to start to use it.
Yeah.
But there's lots to go on locally to really solve this. We got to solve the last mile situation first.
Circle around and talk about Nashville's issue that's on the ballot this month here in a few minutes.
Talk about it?
In a few minutes. Let's kind of focus on Franklin here for a few more minutes if we can. But Paul?
That's the presentation.
Are you done?
Yes,
sir. I've got a couple of curveballs, but I'll save them for later. But Mr. Mayor, Eric, Franklin, Williamson County population has doubled since 2000. What do y'all project going forward as far as population growth? And, and I'll ask Mr. Mayor, you made a comment outside. You can repeat that, but is traffic always going to be this bad? Is it going to, and it's not bad all day long, most of the time. But it is pretty rough at times, so.
What was the question again?
What
about our population?
Population growth, and how's that going to affect
We study these things on a regional basis, what's happening, and the latest is in the next 25 years, our population is probably going to double. Also, in the next 25 years, if we don't do anything to address the current traffic situation, we'll be in gridlock. We already see one of the longest commutes times in the country, in the Nashville region. So it's important that we start addressing this yesterday.
The mayor's population doubling statement is regional, not Franklin. Franklin is growing at pretty much the same rate it's been growing at since the late 1980s in terms of number of people. It's about 2,000 a year, or 20 to 22,000 per decade. And that's what we project going forward as well, that it'll be pretty consistent in that around 20,000 a decade. So we're around 90,000 right now. So you project that forward. And so that is a pretty consistent growth rate that we see. What we do is like they talked about, we try to study every development that happens. We now use not just have them submit traffic studies, but we have a third party that submits those studies so that we're getting an objective review, not just what a developer might like to spin it or portray it as. We try to get an objective review of that. We are updating our impact fee structure to reflect the real cost of delivering roads so that development pays its fair share. It also provides a better mechanism to reimburse them when they build out parts of the road network as part of their development, which helps us, again, handle capacity. You see, we're going to continue to be innovative in using technology to use better the roadways and asphalt and signalization that we have. That's going to continue to evolve. For a city our size, it's pretty unique to have the level of sophistication that we have, and that's not going to change for us. We're going to continue to invest in that, because making the most of the infrastructure you have, having it function better, is the quickest, most efficient way to deal with it. You got to do both. You got to both build, but also technology helps leverage what you've got. So that philosophy is going to continue. We've got a 10-year plan. A lot has gotten done in the last 10 years. We're going to continue to work that. The board will have decisions to make on how it feeds and funds that 10-year plan, as well as what we bring in terms of the structure, like I talked about, on impact fees that has development help pay the way as well.
Mayor, you've been chairman of the MPO, I think, recently. Are you still?
Chairman of the Mayor's Caucus.
Not called the MPO anymore, okay. So, but
they're different organizations, but yeah, I can
really?
answer.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor's Caucus has about 70 mayors representing nearly 2 million people. The MPO is a federally designated body that determines how federal money is spent, and it's based on a transportation plan that's developed regionally.
So is the MPO now still making decisions about how that money is allocated?
Absolutely, it's federally required.
We have a representative on the MPO? I thought so, okay.
And we also have one of the engineering staff, Jonathan Marston, that is on the TCC, which is a technical advisory committee to the MPO. They understand all the bells and whistles and the engineering portion of it, and we're looking at projects that have been ranked through a various algorithm on how to fund them moving forward.
Any hope for moving things? I presume that's part of what Eric's talking about, is getting funding moved to some of our projects. Do you see any movement there that is going to improve or help?
I think the thing that's going to help it move is the Transportation Modernization Act and these statewide public partnerships that we see. I think that is going to cause some movement. We've also recently looked at some of the funds that haven't been spent yet because they're in holding, waiting for a project to move forward. And the MPO released about $100 million to be able to pull down additional surplus, I say surplus, unspent federal highway money. So we're hopeful that that we'll be able to do this. We were either last or next to last as far as pulling down that surplus federal money, and Commissioner Ely has asked us to help change that ranking, and so that's why we released some of that money, but we also have an agreement with TDOT that when those projects come, that money will be there.
Talking about the release of money, is that coming from the federal government, more money, or is that getting released by the
It's
state?
money that has not been spent in the federal highway system. Maybe a state has not used it, so that money is going to be floating out there somewhere. So we're trying to secure some of those funds. I hope I explained that correctly from an engineering standpoint.
Clarify anything, Paul? Okay, good. Well, it's a complicated thing, I understand that, and politics gets interesting always. And so,
It's not as political as it used to be because, there were times in our state when there was a lot of cronyism possibly as far as road selection. And I think that now we're looking at safety. We're looking at economic impact. We're looking at moving traffic. So there are lots of factors that they're now looking at. And when we rank projects in the MPO, we're looking at all those factors.
so from a regional standpoint, how does Franklin look compared to other areas of Metro Nashville? Are our traffic issues similar, worse, better?
We all have traffic problems in the Middle Tennessee region. So everybody's got a problem. Everybody needs money. That goes back to that funding question that I raised, is there's not enough money to do what we need to do.
What we try to do is have a plan and have things identified so when opportunity comes our way, we can try to get in it. And so that's what our staff does. That's why we do longer-term planning. We look at a 10-year window, and we have other projects even beyond that we've identified. We have try to keep our transportation plan updated. We do link land use planning to transportation planning because we know one drives the other. And so that's really the things we can do. And then the mayor, our engineering staff does try to tie into looking at those opportunities. That's how McEwen Phase 4 goes from having 10 million of federal money to 20 to 30 and hopefully more as we continue to explore those opportunities and push, as well as having some of the other technology and other components we talked about to try to make the most of what we've got.
I like to go back to this map, and it really just shows all the progress we've made in 10 years of trying to keep up with all the development that's happening throughout Franklin.
There's been a lot going on, and we applaud any more you can get behind us. And so if there are questions in the audience, it's a good time for me to start. I saw him first, Teresa. We'll be back to you. David Zoff?
David Zoff, absolutely. I'm not an engineer, but I play one in my brain at times. And I'm on my phone, and I can see that on my electric bill, I pay $1 for lighting, $5 for laundry, and so forth. And you're like, what are you going with? There's a lot of turnstile jumpers in our world when it comes to not paying their fair share. And although Jay here with Senator Blackburn says we don't like to talk about taxes, there are people that are not paying taxes, and those are some of the people in this room probably that are driving EVs. And so if my phone can tell me how much I'm spending on my dryer, there's the technology there to tell us who's charging their EV that is not paying for taxes at the gas pump, but should be paying for our roads that they're using. So that's what, 5-10% soon? I mean, in our neck of the woods, there's a lot of people that drive electric cars that are wearing out the roads but are not paying to help fix the roads. So what kind of thoughts do we have on, turning this on to say, listen, you need to pay your fair share because you're also wearing out the roads?
Modernization Act implemented a fee for electric vehicles, and if I remember correctly, they indexed it. So we are getting revenue from EVs now that's supposedly equal to what the gasoline tax would be for.
So that registration fee went up significantly for electric vehicles, as I understand it. And the calculation is what's a typical driver paying in gas tax in a year and translated that into a higher registration fee for the electric vehicles. Now, that's just happened in the last year, so that is a change. It'll be interesting to see what that turns into in terms of revenue over time. But so that has been a focus, and I think it'll continue to be looked at as trying to have that fairness between electric and traditional gas-fueled vehicles.
Yes. Teresa Ashworth Harris. We live in Forest Crossing, which is on off of Royal Oaks and at McHatcher. So I'm very interested in that project. Glad to see that you guys are continuing to push on that. I'm assuming that that starts at Royal Oaks or at 96 and goes all the way to Columbia Avenue. Okay. I had a question about the special census, and I understand that we're doing that because we're trying to get a more accurate count of people, and that will translate into dollars to the city and county, I guess, or city. This is a city special census, right?
City, yes.
So how does that translate, or is transportation funded totally separately? How does that translate in terms of the dollars we might get from the special census and how that might help some of these tight spots that we find ourselves in for transportation?
Yeah, well, there's specific gas tax that comes to localities that's separate, but the population does drive so much of what we get, and state shared tax in particular, which is really state sales tax that comes back to cities based on population. So we were around just under 84,000 at the federal census in 2000. We think we're around 90 today. The per capita number is about $175 per person per year that localities get for population. You do that math, that's about 1.2 million per year to the city of Franklin if we can get our population count to where we think it should be. So that funds operations, but that can fund transportation. That can help us wherever we choose to put those dollars. So it's taxes you're already paying, we're already paying, and just getting our fair share of them because the population numbers have shifted relative to one another over the decade. So, and then we would get that every year through the balance of this decade, probably another 5-6 years until you get the new federal census number. So it's a great opportunity. Thank you for mentioning that. If you haven't done your special census, please do. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, because it really matters. It literally takes less than a minute. Go to our website, click on it, and you can get it done. I did it while I was doing top 3 things a few weeks ago, and it took me a minute. I was multitasking. I bet you can do it in 30 seconds if you're focused.
Anybody that sees Teresa and Frank here sees a lot of orange. So would y'all like to offer a prediction on what's going to happen in Knoxville tomorrow?
It's going to be an excellent game, and the team with the most points will win.
Very good. Hey,
a safe
Dave, I'm an Ohio guy, but I really want Alabama to be 0 for Tennessee this year. I think that would be fantastic.
Just one quick question. Between Royal Oaks and the interstate, does anybody know what a double yellow line means?
No.
All right. I know y'all took it up, but there's some questions from the business people. Where are we now?
Well, as it relates to the median, we're continuing to have discussions with the board. We're actually going to talk about it at our next work session. And we're continuing to have conversations with the business owners. And ultimately, we're going to bring 3 options forward, and the board will have to make a decision on how they want to proceed with the potential median from Royal Oaks to 65.
Already preparing, because I had somebody tell me yesterday that somebody had gotten a room at one of the motels there on 96, and they routed them by GPS down Royal Oaks and back in the back of the Best Western rather than turning off 96. So that's interesting.
But it really is a safety issue. And so we've got an opportunity to do a temporary the barrier. You could look at a full structured concrete barrier or a median strip that could happen, but it needs to be addressed. We're trying to be sensitive to how it impacts those businesses, but it is a safety issue. In fact, when we discussed it a month or so ago, we actually pulled the live traffic camera up as we were talking about it. And, you could see a couple times people physically reacted because you could see it almost have accidents, and just that happens countless times a day.
Can you just stencil no left turn?
If people would listen, yes. Yeah.
A lot of traffic to try to get across. Yep.
Got another gentleman back here. He's trying to be under the radar screen, but it doesn't work, Chuck. Chuck Barber, stand up here and change the subject just a little bit, but got a lot to do with infrastructure. Chuck's with Middle Tennessee Electric, and they've partnered with United Communications to bring broadband to more and more areas in your service area. Give us an update on that, Chuck.
Well, first off, we're real excited about the possibility of bringing broadband to the county especially. And as many people know, there was a time when our students in the county couldn't get online to be able to do their work. Well, that's changing. And of course, with us partnering with Williamson County and getting some federal dollars, we're looking at possibly by the end of 2025 having most of Williamson County done at this point. Again, there's a lot of areas that are unserved that you wouldn't believe, especially out like 840 going toward Fairview area. Even other parts of the county are still lacking. One thing about what we're doing is with United, I should say, and I wished he was here to speak to this, but one thing they're doing is when they build out, they want to serve people as they build, which is a little unique, but we look at it as it was back in the 30s and 40s when people didn't have power. You know, there's an opportunity to bring it. We want to bring it. Rogers Anderson's behind it 110%. And we're looking forward to making that happen. I do have a quick question, though. Tell me a little bit about the advantages of roundabouts. I'm curious about that. And is there a cost savings there compared to putting a light up? I think that would be a good thing to know.
Lots of studies out there on roundabouts. They're generally safer. The accidents that you have happen there are very minor compared to a typical intersection. At a typical intersection, you have a lot of T-bone accidents or potential head-on accidents, and those usually result in injuries, severe injuries. Accidents at roundabouts are minor. The traffic engineers, every time they do modeling, the roundabout will almost always win compared to a conventional signal as it continues to move traffic throughout the day. And then the maintenance on them, you don't have to retime signals, you don't have to replace equipment, change lights out. It just operates on its own. And so long-term maintenance and operation is obviously less expensive.
Do you see that there's a kind of an issue with the public figuring out that process? I think once we get past that, it'll be a great solution. But I've noticed when I get in to Turner's, people kind of not knowing what's coming, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the state of Tennessee is pretty far behind on roundabouts comparative. And if you don't know this, the states and the counties operate all the traffic signals. In some of the states where the DOTs operate the signals, you'll see they've gone to a roundabout first policy. And so states like Ohio or Georgia, they're putting roundabouts everywhere.
Good question there. I think you probably need to put in a special driver's ed class at Centennial High School before you put that roundabout there beside the school. But those 16-year-olds, it might take a while to get used to that. But Eric's made a good point, I think, the last time he was here, that just pick your poison, but you can sit there and wait on the traffic light, or you can keep moving. So that's the way it works. Mr. Mayor, I've saved a curveball for you. You would expect nothing less, right?
I expect nothing less from you, Dave.
Y'all have got about $100 million earmarked for a new city hall. That's about the cost of Southeast McAtcher or Northwest McAtcher. And I could make the argument that some of the people that live along those corridors would rather see the money spent on McAtcher than on a new city hall. How would you answer that?
I would say that we have over 200 employees that work in City Hall, and the conditions that they're working in is subpar. We have, when it rains, they have to put an umbrella over their desk, and I don't think that's a situation we want to put any of our great city employees in long-term. The building we're in is not a building that could be rehabbed or repurposed, and I think that we need a new city hall. We have lots of needs, and we're working to fulfill all those needs that we have in our community, but we have to make choices. We'll continue to work to make sure that we widen Southeast McHatcher, and if you will put enough money in it, we will name one of the lanes the Dave Crouch Lane.
Yeah, well, if y'all decide to do the rest of the sewer line through my property, we'll talk about that. But fair enough.
That's the Dave Crouch Interceptor.
I guess we probably need to wrap it up after that. But it's been a privilege having y'all with us this morning. We appreciate you taking your time to be here, Mr. Mayor, Eric, David, Paul. I know it's an interruption to your day, and we appreciate the time you've taken to be with us. Always appreciate the staff here at Columbia State. Mary Beth and Dr. Darrell Lampley always make us feel welcome here. Rick, you're one of the crew here, and beautiful place to do this, and we appreciate the facility. Creed Henderson and his crew from WCTV make us really look good on the TV screen, and we appreciate that, Creed. And Tom Lawrence makes sure we get out over the WKM every month. So appreciate those media partners, along with Williamson Herald, and well, there you go. Cassie and help me, Derby Jones, golly. Had a blank one there, but we appreciate their help in getting the word out on these. Get some financial help from Vanderbilt University and Vanderbilt Medical Center, and got a young man here with us this morning, and I had his name written down somewhere, but Brady, thank you, Brady, for helping us there. AT&T, I think, do I need to leave them on the list? Yes, they also are a financial contributor. Maybe our most important person here this morning is Terry Rimke. She brings the coffee from our local McDonald's restaurants, the line leadership group that operates those. And Terry, we appreciate that. Chamber staff, Kel McDowell is the quarterback on this effort, and he makes sure everything comes together. So we appreciate that, along with Matt and Jenna and Nancy Conway and everybody that kind of helps make this happen. Just appreciate everyone being here. We're adjourned until 2025. We'll be back in January with the state legislative delegation. So look forward to having you back then. But appreciate all the participation. Look forward to having you back in January. Thank you very much.